Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in the kitchen again today, and today we are going to be making a tropical coffee cake. Now, to make this coffee cake, we're going to need some coffee cake dough. Now, this is actually only half of a recipe. I will link in the video description to the video where I made this dough, or this type of dough, not this exact dough. That was weeks ago. Anyway, you only need half of the recipe for this. So you cut your dough in half. Use the other half for another coffee cake or throw it in the freezer for use later, whatever. So this coffee cake dough lives in the refrigerator before we start using it. Get rid of that. And what you need to do is, yes, it needs to stay in the refrigerator until you're ready to use it, but you need to know it's going to be very cold because it's been in the fridge. So work with it carefully because cold dough tends to tear, so be gentle. But what you're going to do is you're just going to manipulate it, and we want a rectangle. Okay, so we're going to make a rectangle. We're going to make a rectangle. Now, this is my liner for my cookie sheet because that's where we're going to bake it on. So I'm just taking the liner, putting it down, and I want a rectangle that goes not all the way to the edges. It doesn't matter exactly how big that rectangle is, and I'm not going to make you watch me do that. But you just want a nice rectangle of dough. So we'll come back as soon as I have pressed it into a rectangular shape. All right, so our dough is nicely pressed into a rectangle. Don't worry about it too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. So now we need to do our filling. We want to keep our filling down this kind of middle third here. Okay, so first we're going to take 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter. Don't use margarine, you want to use butter. And you're just going to take that and spread that down that center third. Okay, just give that nice little spread. 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter. Again, it's really important you don't use margarine here because it will affect the flavor because of the other ingredients we're going to be putting on top. Okay. Here we go. Good enough. Let's put our butter back. Now we need some kind of preserve, and I'm using orange marmalade, but you can use a peach preserve, you can use maybe an apricot preserve, something like that. You want something tropical. Okay, so I'm using orange, but you can use any of those tropical flavors. Yes, you could, in theory, do it with a strawberry or a raspberry if you like, but because we're going to be adding a couple of other ingredients, that may not work out as well. So what you want is you basically want half a cup, or enough to cover your butter, or mostly cover your butter. So about half a cup of preserves. Again, I'm using marmalade. Use whatever you prefer. If you don't like marmalade, use a peach or an apricot. But I'm using marmalade because my dad really likes marmalade, and this is for him. So we're using marmalade. But again, anything tropical will do. So just stick your marmalade or your preserves, whatever type you're using, on top of your butter. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, nobody's perfect. We're not worrying about perfection. There we go. Good enough. All right. Sorry, I was getting rid of my knife. The next thing we're going to add is coconut. Just an unsweetened coconut is fine. Just either flaked or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as it's dry coconut, don't use fresh. So what we want is no more than about half a cup. So this is actually a quarter cup. So I'm going to do 2 scoops, but no more than half a cup. You can go less. So if you don't love coconut, you can reduce the amount of coconut if you like. Another scoop of coconut. And you want that half a cup of coconut evenly distributed on top of your marmalade. Here we go. There we go. And then our final filling ingredient is going to be nuts. You do want, again, you can leave out the nuts if you don't like nuts, but you do want just a very minimal amount of nut, no more than a quarter cup. You can go less, or you can leave them out entirely, especially if you have somebody in your home allergic to nuts. You might want to eliminate the nuts entirely from this recipe, but it does go nice with a nut. Now we need to shape our coffee cake. So what we're going to do is just cut approximately 1-inch strips. And you don't want to go to your filling. So you don't want to go through your filling. You kind of want to jump over your filling. And you can just use a pizza cutter. I'm using, actually, this is something that came in my pie making kit years ago. And you've probably seen it in other videos. But just jump over that filling there. There we go. Then we're going to take these and crisscross them. So start by pulling them to the middle like this. And we do that just because we kind of want this to lift up a little bit to kind of cup that filling. So we just start going in that direction. But then as we come to the center, we want to be more straight. So we want to slowly become less crisscrossy. And just kind of give the dough a little press so that it sticks together, right? Kind of press them. So refrigerated doughs tend to be kind of sticky. So you can pull them across and kind of just poke them to get them to stick together so they don't pop out, because you don't want them popping out. So now when you're about here, you want to start slowly angling this way. So we're just going to slowly start angling in this direction. And it's okay if you have gaps. One, this is going to rise. 2 gaps are fine. Nobody cares. So then you just keep going. And now remember, we are pulling this way, so when we get to the end, we can cup that filling properly. So then we go this way and that way. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to set this aside to rise. Because it's been in the fridge and you can feel that it's still a fairly cold dough, it's going to take more than an hour. So 1 to 2 hours before it's properly risen. Make sure you give it that amount of time so it properly puffs up and contains all that filling for you. So we're going to set it aside. I'm going to set it aside for 2 hours in my microwave where it contains the heat and the humidity of the dough so it doesn't dry out. But I'm going to set it aside for 2 hours because that's how long it's going to take to rise. So we'll come back in a couple hours. All right, so our coffee cake has been rising for over an hour. It's been about 90 minutes, which is about right. That's about normally what it takes because it's a refrigerated dough. So it has to kind of shed all that cold and then rise. So it has risen nicely. It looks really good. We are going to bake it now for 30 to 40 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to stick it in the oven. We will come back just as soon as it is baked. 30 minutes if you like a lighter colored coffee cake, up to 40 minutes if you want it darker. Remember not to leave it in the oven longer than that. The coconut could burn. We'll be back as soon as it's baked. And there you have it, our finished tropical coffee cake. Remember, you can replace the marmalade with a peach preserve or an apricot preserve, really anything you like, anything that goes well with coconut. Bake it for 30 to 40 minutes, according to your preferences. You might like it a little darker than I do. And you'll have yourself a delicious treat that everyone will love. I hope you enjoyed making tropical coffee cake with us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.